Our obsession with the first 2 weeks of BBM draft season continues on. We push on, and we're still trying to Wally Pip Nez here. So who better to bring on than the man behind the projections himself at ETR, the director of analytics here, Michael Leone. How you doing, my friend? Recurring guest now.
Yes, I'm doing well. Always like chatting with the Badge Bros, even though Nez is gone here. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. No, appreciate you taking some time here. Lots of fun stuff to talk about. As this new ownership metric, I want to dip with the new best ball stuff there. And whoa, I just got some weird update from YouTube. Guys, let me know in the chat if we're still good. I just got a StreamYard update that says we're no good. So let me know. I will look up on the side here. That's odd. I've never had that update before. So just let me know if we're still good on that front. Looks like okay. All right. Sounds like we're good. Sounds like we're
All
good.
right,
There was a
false
little
alarm.
blip there, but we're good. Yeah, false alarm. Yeah, I just got like a StreamYard notification that I'd never seen before. So that was bizarre. All right, cool. Everyone's saying we're good. Yeah,
Right.
anyways, I want to start with before we get into like the nitty-gritty of the BBM stuff, we need a wellness check on you after the Keon Coleman selection for your beloved Bills. How we feeling?
I've talked myself into it, like any true fan would. Uh,
Yep.
I had said I didn't want them to draft him because like the analytical profile is not that great, but they did trade down twice before they got him, and I think that helps a little bit. It also, from purely a non-logical standpoint, but just the fan standpoint, he just seems like an awesome dude. He's been absolutely
Yeah.
hysterical on all the press stuff that they've done with him so far. So that also makes it a bit easier. And yeah, I've really doubled down my fandom because I feel like I've gotten a lot of Keon Coleman in my dynasty rookie drafts this past few days.
You turned it into Nez, just drafting
Yeah,
Najee Harris every time for the brand. That's
got to
good.
do it.
Okay, would you have preferred Troy Franklin because he was like kind of like the analytical darling, but then kind of dropped after the metric stuff, and then I mean, Keon Coleman was at one point in time arguably WR4 in this draft class for a lot of people. But what are your thoughts there?
I mean, at the time, I preferred Troy Franklin, but when the whole NFL passes on him until the fourth round, like I don't know more than 32 NFL teams, so it's hard because like if they had announced Troy Franklin and I didn't know that all these teams would pass him on to the fourth round, I would have been like, sweet, yeah, like I prefer him. But knowing that all these teams passed on him, it's like, well, good thing the Bills didn't, land on that grenade. Like, and I'm not that I'm totally out on Troy Franklin, but I do think you have to respect when like all these other wide receivers we expect to go after Franklin go before him.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I like that response for sure because I low key felt the same way for you when that happened because I was like, man, the fact that everybody like we don't know more than the NFL collectively to be in on Troy Franklin and they're not, right? That's a astute point. We were just talking behind closed doors, Leone, about I'm a big fan of some of the personal stuff you write. You don't write a ton of personal stuff, but you have maybe like 8 to 10 posts or something on your Substack. I really liked you wrote one about tilting last year that was, directly applicable for any of us who play, the daily style contests on Underdog. I encourage people to go read that one. But most recently, you wrote one about hating your phone. Uh, just walk me through the hatred for the phone because I feel very similar, my man. How you deal
Yeah.
with it, etc.
So I definitely go through waves with my phone. I think with my job being what it is, between the lines between personal life and work life get very, very blurred. Like if I'm doing an underdog draft, is that work or not work? So um as a result, I can be on my phone quite frequently. You're checking scores, you're checking drafts, you're sweating DFS contests, and then directly for work, like I'm on Slack communicating with people. There's always stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff on the site as we grow bigger and bigger. So it's become more of a challenge for me to like fully separate and kick off my phone. And that's, more a me thing. And I think I talked about this in the post, but with notifications, like I used to be like, I'm like pretty anti notifications. Like I don't want to be bothered. Like I'll see it when I check it, but it's had sort of like this reverse like impact where now I'm just checking too frequently because I'm not getting notifications. So I'm like, well, what if something's going on and it's gotten to the point where even if like I'm going out to dinner for the night, it's like, well, I got to check to make sure there's nothing going on before I can put my phone away. And yeah, there's definitely times where I'm like, at some point, I need to just like go cold.
Completely detach.
Like I need that.
Yeah.
Not from work, but
So
from my phone.
no, yeah, for sure. Like there's a couple spots there that I fully agree with. For me, the notification thing's weird because I'm a big no notifications guy unless I'm doing like a slate for the day. Then I have the push notifications on for all the underdog news that I need for that. Outside of that, like if I'm away from my computer, this phone has no notifications on outside of call and text, but I do keep the badge emblems on, so I do know if I've like missed something important, but I only keep the
Mhm.
badge emblems on for certain conversations. So like it's kind of like a personal balancing act with like what I deem worthy of a badge notification and which I don't. So like, for instance, like Instagram, that kind of bullshit, nothing there. Twitter, nothing there. But like if there's like Slack communication or Discord communication from certain people or whatever, then I have like a one that pops up. So I know I can kind of like prioritize what needs to be
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I think that's sharp. It's definitely I need to look in even more how to do it, but you can set like real specific modes on iPhone
Mhm.
now of like if I'm in do not disturb, but you can set like your own. Like I have one mode that's like mute all, which is like my default mode, which is like no notifications. But I need to do better of having like a hybrid one where it's like, okay, if my
Yeah.
family texts or calls, or if I get like mentioned in Slack, like I get it, but like I think that might make me feel better about not checking my phone if I like knew that I wasn't missing the important
The
stuff, but then
important
like
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you don't get wrapped into like all the bullshit like you mentioned, like Instagram and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I just feel like it warps my brain too. They're like I'll be going pretty good for a while, but then I'll have a day like now is a good example of it. With all I'm in a bunch of dynasty leagues. I have all these rookie drafts going. So like and there's a lot of they're all slow drafts. There's a lot of trading and I have somewhere I have a lot of picks. So like when I have a stretch where I'm like really on my phone for a good like I have a reason to be, but then the days following it seems like I'm more latched onto it even after that ends, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because you build a routine associated with it, right? Like, oh, it was normalized for a week. Like it could be
Yeah.
normalized for a day, a week, a month, whatever, but you get like locked in that behavior pattern and now all of a sudden, oh yeah, here this is the new normal, right? Yeah, I find it very much so with like drafting and stuff like that. Like I have to do like cold turkey weekends for the fiance's sake, for when just your own personal like well-being, like we go to the cabin, we go to whatever, I'll just be like completely off kind of thing.
Nice.
And my job's a little different than yours, so you necessarily couldn't do that sort of thing at times, right? But like, yeah. Anyways, I just
Well, I
found
do
it.
have like the when I go out to eat with my friends, like I'm pretty good about like sometimes I'll just leave my phone in the car.
Yeah.
Um Me and Rachel go out. It's kind of selfish, but I'm glad she has her phone because I'm like babysitter needs to get a hold of us, they can get a hold of Rachel. Like, so we're not out of contact, but I can leave mine in the car. When I go, I have a group of friends I go golfing with. We try to go like once a week, and I'm pretty good about like not doing that. And
Mhm.
it's a good break, but I need more breaks of like when I'm just at home doing nothing. Kind of, I still need a break there.
Right, yeah. It's like those off times there. I love the no phones on the course rule. The boys and I implement that one too. No phones on the course. But it is a generational thing, man. Like I notice it with like buddies that I have that are younger than me. Like they're way, way worse. Like when we're out, out for lunch, out for a bar, out for a whatever, they're way worse. And I'm kind of like thankful I didn't grow up with a smartphone in
Oh,
my hand since age like 10. Like you're gonna go through it with your kids, right?
yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Like I'm so messed up, and I swear, like we didn't even really have iPhone in college. Like the
Hmm.
smartphones was like after college, and like I still feel messed up from it. Like I can't imagine where like some of these kids in first grade have like smartphones. Like like it's just not a good idea, And
Yeah.
it's going to be very difficult on the parenting side of things.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's hopefully we haven't had to cross that bridge yet, but I know it will be coming in not too much time.
Yeah. Anyways, long-winded way of suggesting that you guys should go read Leone's casual from the heart personal posts as well, because those are very cool, man. I appreciate you doing those. Let's talk
Thank
about
you.
some BBM stuff. Let's talk about what I am deeming the quantification of scroll the F down. What I selfishly have always wanted to be my the new metric, man. Like I've always wanted this, particularly for BBM and the daily contest going forward. I'm glad you guys have come up with a formula to do it. Let's talk through it. Projecting ownership for BBM. What does it entail? What goes into it? How reliable can and actionable can this information be?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty reliable over the full course of the off season. We have some shortcuts, so we know it's not going to be exact or perfect, but essentially we kind of know that, the ADP, I believe it's like 48 hours. The previous 2 days is what goes
Yep.
into the ADP that you're seeing on Underdog, which is the same ADP we get. We're not getting any special information or anything, but based on last year's data, you can kind of figure out, an ADP of 215.6, like what ownership does that mean for the previous 2 days? So we're able to do that. And then if you just do that literally for, every single day and then weight it correctly by the number of entries that were drafted that day, you can get with the current ownership estimate. Now it's, we don't call it a projection because we're not trying to dictate like what's going to happen the rest of the tournament, but like as of this point in time, this is how owned these players are. And it will be, I think, in a month or two, be pretty useful. Now I'm a little skeptical how useful it is. I know I've talked with Herzig about it, and he's almost like anti trying to get unique this early because his take is kind of the guys that you get unique on either have a really high fail rate and are bad picks, or they will become popular enough picks by the end of the tournament that they're not even that unique. So like the risk reward isn't so great. Whereas when you get into August, July, there's going to be guys where you kind of know their role on the team and their ownership, and that's when you really want to scroll the F down and take some shots.
No, I love that. That's really good, and I think it's really good context to know how it's made, because one of my big questions for you was going to be like, how do we trust this cumulatively over the course of the summer? And the fact that you guys are pulling it every 2 days and it's going to adjust for itself. So if we see a stark drop off in someone, like I used the J.K. Dobbins injury from 2 seasons ago in the preseason there, where he was like a third or fourth round pick, and then he falls completely out of the equation, and then Gus Bus goes from like 15th round to like 4, 5, 6, something like that. How will that kind of like show itself and be reflected? Like, will there be a way for us to chart this and kind of like what I'm kind of like just thinking through
So
a player
yeah,
who comes from nowhere or comes from 10% owned to 100% owned.
so essentially what we're tracking and estimating is the total number of entries that were drafted on a day and how many of those entries a player was on each day. So it doesn't matter how wildly the ADP swings. We'll be able to do the math because we'll just be able to say, well, Gus is now on 100% of teams, but we know the exact quantity of teams estimated that he was on prior to that. And then you just kind of keep a running tally. So I think the way we're doing it's pretty good. I mean, we'll see. There's not really like a perfect way to
Mhm.
to back test this, but I feel pretty confident that like I don't think someone we put at 20% own is going to be 40.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think plus or minus 5%, I think we'll be pretty, dialed in, maybe even plus or minus 3%. But I am interested to see the final results, see how close we are.
How okay, so how does it come, like, just the fact that ADP on the site is kind of like on a bell curve. So like, 215.4 isn't the exact same as 215.6 or whatever, right? It's actually more like 210 and 260 or whatever. How do you guys come to quantify that?
It's all based on historical data. So
Okay.
we can so this data is available publicly, but you can kind of see if you look at last year, just pick a random day, for example, and a guy has an ADP of 215.5. you can see all the drafts the previous 2 days that were done and know what that ownership was for him. So essentially what we're doing is looking at like, okay, all the players that had 215.5, what was their average ownership the previous 2 days? It's not all going to be the same, but it's going to get you pretty close. And that gets, I have a chart. I won't share the whole thing because there's a little secret sauce, but like just to give an example,
Sure.
of where is it? Of course, I can't find it right now. Hold on, talk for a second here. Oh, and I will.
Well, the one that really interests me is like because 215.6, like I'm just using it as an arbitrary number, isn't the exact same relative to position, right? Because like the flex position is going to be weighted differently than the onesies positions are going to be. So
Yeah,
just working through that is all just rooted in historical data. There's no kind of like little subjectivity that you guys bake in yourself to see that like, hey, yo, only 30 or only 33-ish quarterbacks could possibly be going in one isolated draft. So this is going to be weighted than what the running back with the same ADP would be.
yeah. So we didn't do too much with positional adjustments for BBM because
Okay.
I think you definitely would have to for the weekly drafts.
Okay.
Um, that could be a hole. We'll see. We did not do the positional adjustments for BBM, so that's not influenced. If you think that could be an area where we're off. But like, for example, we know that like on average, pick 214.5, we have a 17%
Mhm.
ownership, and then pick 215.8, it's like 2.3% ownership. So it's a very non-linear thing that we're able to
Right.
kind of decipher.
Yeah, because that's like a stark drop off for something that appears to be two picks apart.
Right.
Mhm. Did you find that chart?
Yeah, I just pulled those numbers from the chart. I won't bring the whole
Gotcha.
thing up, but just yeah, and then you see like around, you know, 190, pick like ADP of 190, you're already at like 97% owned. So really you're just looking at kind of the fringe outliers. Once you start to get to like 195 is one thing, you're at like 90% owned, and things start to drop off as you drop from there.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. Well, here I'm going to bring this up for a second relative to your guys's ranks in there because I mean, guys, for less than 2 BBM entries, you guys can get the best ball product at ETR, not affiliated and or sponsored or given any money for saying that, but it's well worth your guys' time and investment. So like something like this, where like the ETR rank is 201 on Samaj AP Ryan, not like a very applicable example here, but just curious, but it falls in that 215.7, yet it's only 5% owned compared to one who's like 114.9 Josh Reynolds, who's like 7 or 19% owned there.
Yeah, and part of that is the difference between 215.7 and 214.9 being like, as you said, like bigger than you would think on the small
Mhm.
differences. And some of it is, the past days. It's not just that ADP, but we've been doing it for a week now. So it could have been that, Reynolds was drafted a bit earlier in the beginning of the contest as opposed to where he is now.
I love the fact that this metric is based in the historical data of the last 2 days. It makes it way more actionable than just being like a raw estimate based on what an ADP is.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked at a few different ways to do it and it ended up just being easiest to almost, there's almost no modeling actually done on this. It's almost
Mhm.
completely descriptive based on the past data. There's just some tweaking to get the data to make sense and make sure the sample sizes are good on everything.
Awesome, man. Anything else you would like to say on the ownership estimate? I love the tool. I think it's going to be very useful and it's going to get increasingly more actionable over the course of the summer. Anything just macro to tie a bow on ownership?
Not for BBM. Like
Mhm.
I said, I would like to do this for the battle royales when we get into it, but I don't have that data. I think they released it, right? Didn't they release a whole bunch of draft data or no? They didn't. I
No.
thought they did at one point. So
They
that's gonna
this is
be
a point
hard.
of contention, and I'm on the boomer side of this equation, Leone, versus some other people. And I'm a big like if you release the macro contest stuff, I'm totally cool with it, and the BBM stuff. I was fighting the good fight on the battle royale stuff of put some skin in the game, then you can get those people have downloadable access. Will it still be shared? Will it still be whatever?
Mhm.
Of course. Will it still find its way to the public? Of course. But I just thought about it in terms of it's far more actionable because BBM we're only on the fifth slate right now. We have 4 iterations to deal with. There's so much noise in the sample. Whereas like the BR stuff, if you just dump released 5 years of 17 plus weeks of information, I think the game would become solved far, far sooner. And, not that I'm opposed to the next iteration of BR with simulations and that sort of thing. I was kind of more of the let's keep this a phone shitter bro game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
No, I get that, but if you want these ownership projections, dude, I need the data.
I know I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth because I want the ownership projections in a big way on a personal level as well. No, I don't know. I think it's going to come to fruition out of like transparency.
Yeah, the last thing I'll
Yeah.
say on it is I noted a few minutes ago that I don't think it's like super useful right now. But I do think once it becomes useful, it's just a lot easier to scroll the F down when you see like 75% versus 10.
Right.
Like I have a tough time when it's not staring me in the face. That's why I talked about Peter Overset on his Best Ball After Dark. Like actually seeing it in front of you is going to make it, I think, a lot easier to like make that click that you might not necessarily want to make. When you just see like ADP of like 215.8 versus 212, you're like, well, I'm just going to take the guy I like more. But if you throw 70% versus 25%, then you're going to be, feel a lot better about scrolling down.
Yeah, I mean, like if you knew Demario Douglas was 80% and Jalen Polk or Baker or one of these other guys on the same team were like 10, he'd be an awful play for week 5 of the regular season. You just play the less owned one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Neil does bring up that so they did release the batch data of last year, but there's no tags to it. So you can't tell specifically like what player drafted what. And that's what I was like my integrity was based in protecting that.
But you can see, but there might be enough there for ownership then if you know what the ADP was and is there like dates? Well, I don't know. We can talk about this later. There might be enough there to figure it out. I just haven't looked.
Okay, yeah. No, that definitely. And like there's an ID tag for every draft. So you can see like every draft and probably time steps. You could definitely model ownership. Here you go. Neil's way smarter than me. So there you go.
All right,
That's
Neil.
perfect.
Boom.
There you go. Speaking of Neil, good little segue to some conversations that I know have been taking place behind closed doors between you, him, Pete Overzed. Pete's going to be doing a new video, slight tease. He's hoping to drop it soon here on the implications of week 16 versus week 17. Leone, do we have an amendment to make in the manifesto? Are we gonna be week 16 bros now? You guys I'll bring up the Twitter feed just so people can see it because there was some little back and forth conversation there. But this is Neil's original tweet suggesting some things, and then you had a little bit of a rebuttal. Let's just talk macro week 16 verse 17 and its importance going forward.
Yeah. So first thing, just speaking comparative to last year, like week 16 compared to last year, compared to this year, is undoubtedly more important this year than last year because there's more prizes in week 17 and they're flatter. So just getting there increases your EV a lot as opposed to like having to win week 17 or having to come into the top 3 to get like that really life-changing money. Okay. It's hard to compare them against one another because and shout out to Peter, who's really going through lengths to make sure he understands this and communicates it well.
He just told me he's so far down the rabbit hole right now. He's like, I can't even see straight.
I was saying to him, there's a little bit of it that reminds me like the Monty Hall 3-door problem where like, you're supposed to, if there's a prize behind 3 doors and they eliminate 1 door, you're supposed to switch doors. And it feels like you're doing nothing, but you're actually greatly increasing your probability. There's a little bit of that to this. Not directly analogous, but indirectly in terms of like how you increase your EV. But first of all, the assumption Neil is making, and I kind of made in some of my stuff, is like if we move the win rates by round like the same percentage. So like if you could increase your chances of winning week 16 by 10% or increase your chances of winning week 17 by 10%, you would want to increase your chance of winning week 16 by 10%. That would actually increase your EV. And that comes down to the way the prizes are structured. And also just this is a confusing topic. Just zooming out, the thing that helped me when I was talking about it with Peter, because like I'm trying to figure it out as I'm talking to him. Like he's asking me questions. I don't really have the answers. I'm figuring it out on the fly with him. But if you just looked at purely your odds of winning first place grand prize of BBM, nothing else, no other prizes, no EV calcs or anything, just your odds of winning the thing. If you improved your odds by 10% in any round and then kept the rest randomness, it would not matter one iota which round you increased your win rate by 10%. It would have the same net impact on your chances of winning the grand prize. It could be your regular season advance rate. It could be your week 17 if you get there. And it does not matter where you increase your win rate by 10%.
It's just the fact that you increased your win rate by 10%.
When you do the probability, you're just multiplying your regular season advance rate times your odds of winning week 15 times your odds of winning week 16 times your odds of winning week 17. It comes out in the wash, where you improve it. It's going to be the same. So then when you circle back to EV, essentially what you're saying with week 16 is increasing either of these by 10% has the same negligible impact on me winning first place. Right? But week 16 ensures that I get there and I've picked up EV on all the other prizes. And you could kind of back that out to like regular season advance rate. You increase that by 10%, has the same impact of your odds of winning the entire BBM if you increase in week 17, except you've just improved your chances of winning prizes from advancing in the regular season, which improves, your odds of advancing in week 15, improves your odds of advancing in week 16. And that's why the EV calcs are better for the earlier weeks. Now, the retort to that might be that it's easier to improve your chances of winning week 17 from 0.2% to 0.4%, which would be like a 100% increase in your odds. Like you'd be doubling them. It's easier to do that than taking your advance rate from 17% to 34%. So that would be like the argument for optimizing more for week 17 would be that you have more influence. I'll spoil some of Peter's, but your range of influence is wider in terms of like, could you do that? Now, running DFS sims, I'm kind of skeptical of that because it was very rare that like we saw. I still think I think it would be roughly comparable. I think it's easier and when you see the small numbers to think, oh, I could go from 0.2% to 0.8, but I don't think in reality it is. So I do think the earlier weeks are somewhat, I don't know if undervalued, but yeah, there's my spiel on it.
Okay, well, now is there leverage in terms of like the knowledge pendulum because we are so week 17 oriented right now. Let's talk about everyone who's drafting the first 3% of BBM right now. They are people that own your projections, that consume this content, consume Pete's content. If we are all in that camp of still our mindset of last year with week 17, now is there an ownership leverage play to then be the person who's optimizing for 16 or optimizing for regular season, something like that, and not chasing the same thing that everyone else is, I guess, once schedule comes out?
Well, it just comes down to like the how much can you control improving your win rate odds, right? And what you're saying, and I think there's probably some truth to this, is if no one's optimizing for week 16, if I'm making all my stacks for week 16, I can actually influence that more than I can week 17, where everybody's trying for that. And I think that might be accurate. I guess the counter argument would be like, well, if everyone's trying to optimize for week 17 and you aren't at all, then like not only are you not increasing, but maybe you're like actively decreasing your odds of winning week
True.
17. But
Yep.
I know it's weird because these conversations I think are super fun, like theoretically. In practice, though, I'm kind of like just try and do a little bit of everything. It's not that hard to
Right.
like just like draft a smart advanced rate team that has some stacks and rifle in some correlation in the playoff weeks. You know what I mean? Like, so
Right. Yeah.
that's a super boring take, but that's probably what I'll end up doing. I do think I'll probably try and be aware of my week 15 and 16 correlations a little bit more than I was last year, which honestly was just mostly out of laziness and just I knew the schedule for week 17 like back on my hand, when you're in drafts, whereas 15 and 16 don't have it quite as memorized. But yeah, if you can mix teams too that,
Well,
you've got two quarterbacks, one plays the Panthers in week 16, another plays the Panthers in week 17, and then it's like, oh, you can double dip there.
yeah, no, I like that show for sure. Let's talk about how you would conceivably optimize for that, because as you allude to, and as Sacrilegious has said, these things don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? Like we don't have to go into a draft with a binary take of like this roster is for week 16, this roster is for regular season, right? It alludes to it, we swing far more closer to the boring take that you just alluded to, right? If I were to kind of like redo the manifesto right now and look at like some of the things that you've said from the past in terms of stacking, the 6 to 9 stacked players, the two quarterbacks, that sort of thing, what kind of amendments could we possibly make for this year's landscape given the shift in the way advancing and the payout structure is in the finals?
Yeah, I'm hoping to rerun some of the data and get some more concrete answers, but intuitively, I think that just getting there is so important. I know it's boring. I know but I think the flaw in again, the week 17 is all that matters thinking. And my manifesto says week 17 is very important. There are things you can do to help your win rate. But I think the flaw is like people overlook like the trickle down rate of like if you improve your odds of advancing in the first place, you are mathematically improving your odds of winning week 17 too. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you can't look at it as if you make week 17. Like when you're drafting these teams, you haven't made anything yet. You have to get through all these other rounds. So it reminds me a little bit of the NBA playoff best ball stuff where I thought people, again, this is from afar, like helping Drew do the rankings. My NBA knowledge is like zilch, but it just seemed like
Actually, on that topic, Leone, sorry to cut you off for a second there. Are you involved in like the nitty gritty of the day to day in building NBA projections?
I do the framework. I am not involved
Okay.
at all in terms of like doing minutes and rates or
Okay.
anything.
Yeah, you're not sitting there going like, "Yo, TJ McConnell's going to come off the bench tonight and play 22" kind of deal.
I'm like stunned TJ McConnell's in like, I mean,
Fair enough.
But there was a dynamic where the Suns were being drafted like too much because like if they made the playoffs, their odds of going to the finals would be better than like, I don't know, Cleveland's odds of going to the finals, for example. But I don't think people were baking in enough like the odds that they miss the playoffs completely impacts those odds as well.
Right.
Like if you're only 50% to make the playoffs, even if you are much better, once you make the playoffs, like your odds of going to the finals, you have to multiply the odds of making the playoffs times the odds you make it to the finals if you make the playoffs. Whereas people were just looking at the latter part of the equation of like, well, if they make the playoffs, they can make a deep run. And I realize in those games, you kind of need the teams in the finals. So like you don't want to take a team that doesn't have like an upside to get there. But I do still think people like misunderstand, how the probabilities are linked together a little bit.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I want to I'm glad you brought up the NBA playoff stuff because I made a note the other day with Hayden, maybe it was with Gretch, where I was like, I think we are falling into a pattern with BBM where the onslaught stacking, especially the way in which points are being scored in the new age NFL and like the positive correlation between pass catching running backs and that sort of thing now is more so than it had ever been in the past. There used to be like you can't put a bell cow running back with his quarterback because he's going to scoop the touchdowns. Where's the EV boost there? I think now in this modern NFL and the way in which we value stacking, especially with what you alluded to with the week 16, week 17 overlap there, is it safe to say that the onslaught stacking in BBM should be a little more prevalent, especially before the schedule is out? And that like the mantra and meta should go into that, like, hey, I'm making one concerted bet and it's betting on the Miami Dolphins. That's it. There's no added variables to this equation.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You're going to run into some opponent correlations in the playoffs just by randomness, anyways. And um, I'm a broken record with this stuff, but it's kind of like a combo of two things. One, like if the offense rolls, everybody rolls. And then also the optionality of the correlation in best ball, I think is like pretty important and a very different thing from DFS. And that's one of the things that I think I initially undervalued stacking in best ball because I was
Okay.
thinking like from a DFS mindset where like you take Burrow and T and Chase, like you got to pick the right guys. Whereas you take Burrow, T and Chase and best ball, you can get the alpha chase game and just use a different wide receiver in T's spot. And that especially impacts the onslaught where, yeah, you're not going to use those guys' scores in a given week altogether, but I think there might be some floor help in addition to the ceiling help with some of this stuff that
Interesting.
people think of it as a ceiling play, but I think there's actually some like floor play to it. Obviously under the assumption the offense is pretty good.
Okay. Actually, that's kind of fun that you brought up the word ceiling because I wanted to ask you about like what goes into your guys' projections and how, when you guys end up doing the Battle Royale rankings and you end up doing the DFS stuff throughout the season, you guys always have that ceiling projection column. Is that something that we can or could have for best ball? Is it relevant to best ball? Would it lend itself to the later, weeks in the season if we were searching for ceiling in best ball? What are your thoughts on just that as a macro concept?
Yeah, I think next year, I'm hopeful we can do something really cool.
Mm,
This year, I think we're somewhat limited. We do give everybody like a ceiling case, but it's not necessarily derived by week, which would be really important if you're doing like a best ball specific thing.
okay.
But right now, our rankings are all derived from like one projection set where we have a base case and a ceiling case for players, and we weight that differently. Like rookies, we're gonna kind of increase the odds that they hit their ceiling and some of the efficiency stuff, and that makes up for them, usually having a worse base projected target share or whatever. But it's hard to like draw one-to-one line to like what their weekly ceiling should be. We
Okay.
could derive it from like our ceiling case, but I don't think it's perfect. In an ideal world, what we'd like to do is actually be able to, simulate each week of the NFL season. And then you've got so much, if you could actually do that and take into account things like, rookies ascending at the end of the year, or like guy gets hurt, this other guy has to play instead. It'd be really cool. And what you could do there then is like, you could So basically, like you could figure out like a replacement level player score. Let's say wide receiver, I don't know, it's 10 points, right?
Yep.
So then you'd look at all the sims for Marvin Harrison, and instead of just saying, oh, on average, his sim is like 12 points for week 17, you'd look at all the sims individually, and anything below 10 points doesn't matter because that's just replaced. So that's a 0. And then anything simmed above 10 would count towards his running tally for his week 17, points above replacement. And then you could come up with like an actual ranking for like who's most likely to matter. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's literally quantifying better in best ball from a projection
yeah,
standpoint. Yeah.
it'd be really cool because then it'd be, so you could have someone who, for better in best ball, you could have a rookie who, his week 17 sims 12 points, but he actually has more simmed points added above expectation than someone whose sim average is 13 points, but just has like this flat distribution.
Right. Yeah. No, it's so fun, man. I love getting into the nitty gritty of this stuff that like where your mind goes with it. It's so cool, man, because this is the stuff that the true deep in the weeds guys,
The
we crave
sickos.
this, man. Yeah, we crave this. This is so good. I respect that. I think this is a really cool question from Star Tours here. Actually, I did before we read that one. I did see Nez from Portugal still making sure
Log off,
that
Nez.
yeah,
Did you see
yeah,
the phones segment in the beginning?
yeah, exactly. Go touch some grass out there, my friend. But like this is kind of a macro conversation that a lot of people have been having right now because we don't have the schedule, we don't have that sort of like actionable information. So people are talking about how important is CLV, and you did a lot of research on that in the Best Ball Manifesto. So I'll ask you two questions. I'll ask you the one tethered to what Star Tours is saying, like, does the price of players in a mega stack like matter necessarily, and does getting CLV on a mega stack or on certain spots matter at all going forward?
Yeah, I'm biased, but I always think price matters. Like I'm a very price sensitive drafter in general. And if you think about it in terms of mega stacks, like, you know, I think about it more in terms of where I have the players ranked in price, not so much the raw cost, because you could have the 3 Houston wide receivers be very expensive and be, a better price adjusted onslaught than like 3 cheap Giants wide receivers potentially. But
I
I
learned
kind of
that the
look at
hard way last year.
the price I kind of look at as like each player. Essentially what the ranking is saying is like how, is this player a better or worse bet than the players in front of them and below them? If you had to boil it down to one thing, it's not like, are they going to score more points? It's like, the exact points of the ranking order. Some guys will rank differently based on like the floor or ceiling they provide, but like ultimately the rank boils down to, in a vacuum, this player is a worse bet than all the guys ranked ahead of them and a better bet than all the guys ranked below them. So if you can get a bunch of players on a team that you like where you're getting them past their ADP, but we have them, you have them ranked higher, I think you're just stacking a bunch of good bets in general and then adding in the correlation piece. Whereas if you're just blindly going in saying like, oh, I think this offense is really good, so I want a bunch of their pieces, you might be just, parlaying a bunch of like minus EV bets together. Now, it could still work out because the offense is linked together. So there's going to be scenarios where that pays off. But there's a lot of middle scenarios that I think people ignore, which is like one of these guys breaks out and is like really good. And like maybe the offense is just mediocre and like you still do pretty good, right? Like,
Right.
You start to lose some of those outs in the middle case scenarios, the worst price that you get on the mega stack.
Yeah, I mean, to give that a specific example, like look no further than the Texans last year and then Noah Brown as like a not owned at all late round breakout piece that nobody gave any merit or credit to potentially being a breakout candidate. And then he was, a better in best ball type that spiked multiple weeks that was completely unowned. I totally agree with this. I love that interpretation of rank. Leone, I know you got an out coming up shortly, so I'm gonna go ahead, hop in a draft. I gotta ask you the pressing question that I've been asking everybody who jumps on the show with us, but we will do it while in a draft. So if you guys wish to hop in the BBM and soak up some of this, there will be no EV to be soaked as long as Leone is here. But if he happens to leave by like the 4th or 5th round, then the EV will start flowing. So go ahead and hop in here. We got 7 more spots. The macro question I've been asking everyone, Leone, is circled around Drake London and what the hell do we do in the second round? Have we gone crazy with pushing up these wide receivers far too high? But it's called the Drake London thesis right now because it all centers around Drake London. What are your thoughts on the second round from a macro standpoint, and then give us a Drake London isolated take?
I mean, I'm pretty obsessed with Drake London. I know when JJ Zachariason, I always read his prospect guide, but last year he does like a year 2 model, and London was right up there with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, and those were guys that we were taking at the 1-2 turn or late 2 last year. And so like talent wise, I think he's right there. It's just his situation hasn't been good. And now his situation's awesome. Like he's in a dome all year long. He's playing with a pocket passer quarterback who's efficient, doesn't take a lot of sacks, doesn't scramble a lot. The pass volume is going to be way higher. He doesn't have a lot of competition for targets. So if you think he's really good and then you play out the team level Atlanta stuff, like he's a 1-2 turn pick. So that's sort of the way I view it. I know a lot of people struggle with like, well, this guy's never put up these fantasy points. You're making a big projection, but you're really making a projection on anybody. Just because you've seen it before doesn't mean you're not making a projection. So that's my London spiel. It definitely gets a little scarier as, you know, it seemed for a while we were maybe gonna get him late too, and that's kind of gone. But yeah, I think like London, I would take London over Garrett Wilson.
Okay. I respect that, man. If you take London over Garrett Wilson, you're gonna end up with a lot of them. I have the ETR
Well,
ranks in
yeah, and
here.
that's where I should do my diversification now. If I was doing one draft, I would take London over Garrett Wilson, but I generally time these things so that I'm getting like a lot of London, but not like literally every time.
Yep, fair enough. That's actually interesting because I kind of had that conversation with Easy. Are you familiar with Easy, Eric? He was on
Yeah.
Friday's show. Yeah,
Yep.
and Easy was talking through kind of his mantra of last year. Oh, let's make our first pick together, Leone. We're at the 107 right now. We got a little bit of ADP plus ranking from ETR on Bijan here, but I'm open to whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, for me, easy Bijan pick. I mean, I'm guessing we're going to be in a wide receiver heavy room, but I've just found even ahead of ADP a little bit, I like the anchor running back teams so far that I've done.
Okay, like it.
And
Yeah.
just getting lots of wide receivers, the other, you know, 4 in the first 6 or something. I don't know.
Okay.
How have you been doing? I feel like I keep winding up on 3 quarterback teams to 3 quarterback teams or 3 tight end teams or both.
I have been doing a little bit too much of the double elite tight end stuff, and I've kind
Okay.
of had to start walking that back. I think this is only draft number 8 in BBM, I believe 7 or 8 in BBM, and we did 20 of the mini schnauzers, whatever, that are slow drafts that are still going right now. But I find myself doing a little bit too much of the double elite tight end stuff there. But I do find myself doing 3 quarterback builds that fall back on a principle that I was talking about during the big board stuff, which would be the elite quarterbacks are a little underpriced right now. I take one of those. I take a dusty vet, in quotations, dusty. Particularly Geno Smith is my favorite target right now in that camp that I just think's mispriced. And then I take a kind of like a one skinny stack rookie that has a rush floor potential, such as Bo Nix, like late. And that's been my 3 quarterback builds.
Nice.
We got Chris Olave come back to us here. A little divisional correlation, if that matters to you. Devontae Adams, Mike Evans ahead of market. Yeah, what do you like?
I'd probably go Olave. I mean, by both our rank and ADP, he's near the top of the board. So that's and you mentioned the divisional correlation. We don't know the schedule yet, but definitely increases our odds of getting a playoff game against each other with our first round pick.
I like it. I like it. Chat asking you right now, is double elite quarterback a bad idea right now?
The way I've looked at it is with the depth charts a little bit more uncertain this time of year. I like grabbing my receivers and running backs early and getting ones that are sure bets instead of having to take kind of some swings on some guys that are real risky late at this time of year. And that's kind of pushed me to taking my quarterbacks late or single elite. And I've ended up in a similar boat on tight end. Tight end, you know, just kind of the way it's broken. But yeah, so I have not done double elite yet. I've only done a handful of drafts. So I wouldn't say it's bad in a vacuum, but it's not a build I found myself on.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you found yourself doing 3 and 3 at the onesies primarily?
I have a lot. I also think, you know, and some of this was in the manifesto, but when you have 3 stacks, it's pretty good for those single weeks to have like 3 different stacks for when you get into the playoff weeks. It kind of improves your odds that just like one of those stacks goes off on that week. And it seems to play a little bit better mathematically in the weeks 15, 16, and 17 formats.
Yeah, some of the math that you had associated with that, like it kind of stood by the concept that like 3 was bad for advance rates, but good in the finals. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but just as memory serves, it was like three in the regular season wasn't as good as 2, but 3 in the finals because the optionality was good, and then a total of 6 to 9 stacked players with said quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that sounds right. I don't have it in front of
Okay.
me, but I think that's right.
Yeah, it was something to that effect. Actually, I'll ask you a question here that Hayden and I touched on a little bit yesterday, was the notion of a run back. We talked about it a lot during Battle Royale season, and just kind of like how the run back on 6-person rosters was becoming less and less effective. How does that work on a BBM roster once we know, the schedule and stuff like that? Is it something you'll be prioritizing for like a correlation boost to take a player as a run back, or do run backs not necessarily matter?
I think it matters. The stuff we showed is it matters. And same thing that I said earlier, like you get some optionality on it where it's like you don't have to use the run back. There's times in DFS where you're tilting, your stack goes off and you do a run back and it's just like, a blowout or something. Like you don't run into that dynamic because you just don't have to use the run back score. I'm also like, I'm not crazy firm on my player takes for the most part. This is where I'm just like doubling down on the stuff we got wrong last year, but Olave, Devontae Smith, just running it back with those guys. I don't know who you like, and some chance we get the Hurts stack in 4.
Yeah, no, that checks out for me. It's always fun to try and dodge the AJ Brown drafter on the other side for the Hertz one, but it happened on yesterday's stream or the stream before, where someone went AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and then let Hertz go, and Hertz ended up all the way at 47.
Wow.
Like, I mean, Hertz should be closer to 2-3 turn than 4-5, should he not?
Yeah, definitely. No, I absolutely agree. So, but yeah, the bringbacks, I don't know, it's pretty easy for me at some point in my draft to generally just find a tiebreaker where I'm like, okay, well, these players are the same tier, so give me the guy who's correlated. And then that also helps if you're drafting a lot of teams and just not being like crazy exposed to one player or crazy underexposed to another player, because you kind of naturally get them where they make the most sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go back that far to
I guess
see
we
that
should
play
have
out.
we should have known with the Barkley and AJ Brown they were going full Philly, but sorry we took Devontae Smith from you.
We're good on that anyways. I'm fine with one off Devonta Smith. That feels good
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, I mean, we don't even have to go back far to see that play out in a results oriented way in just looking at Crane's roster from BBM3. And it was like Tyquan Thornton was a scoring piece, but a guy that he had very little exposure to. And the only reason he was there because he used it as a tiebreaker to add a Patriot onto the Miami stack stuff.
There's the double elite tight end.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't been doing it that. I've been doing it with the pocket of the 5-6, and kind of using end of tier Kittle and Pitts as the benchmark.
Well, yeah, I think that makes sense. I was gonna say Kelsey would be good here, but he goes. Sorry, hold on one second. I have people working my house.
Yeah, no worries. Guys, this is where our team goes off the rails because Leone's not going to be here to make a pick. So
we're just smashing wide receiver.
All right,
no, I don't.
Higgins?
What would you do here? What would you do here?
I would take T. Higgins. T. Higgins
Yeah.
feels like a tier break guy to me.
That's who I would take too. And I think I got Burrow T at such good prices in a draft the other day that I did actually end up going with a 3 quarterback build with Burrow. When last year you would have for sure been penciled in kind of 2 quarterbacks just because the draft capital that you would have been investing in him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I haven't experimented with yet. Basically, if I take a quarterback inside of like the top 7, 8-ish, I only end up with 2 the vast majority of the time. So I think it's a good differentiating technique too. Actually, I'll ask you a question about that I had really wanted to ask you is, are we in this window yet of BBM? The knowledge is so profound that if we are, or collective knowledge is so profound that we are building cash game lineups to put into GPPs, or are we still in the play the best plays era of BBM, and there's still a big edge in just being, roster construction right and whatever? Is it too early for us to be zigging when others zag?
I think we're still in the stage. There's enough casuals that don't know how to draft, even if there's one or two in a league that I think, and there's usually more than that, that we're still in the stage where you just want like a smart roster construction. I don't think you need to do anything insane to get unique. And the like cash game versus GPP type lineup, again, it's like the concepts aren't like totally combative either.
Right.
So it's, I'm generally like smart roster construction, play the best plays. I'll experiment though, like if, just based on how the draft goes. Like I'll make some seemingly extreme builds, like positionally, and make it work at the end. And I think some of that just from experience and doing a lot of drafts, you know how to kind of balance the capital you spend at each of the positions. But I'm not like going into a draft trying to be like, okay, if I just do a 3-6-8-3, that's not going to get it done anymore. Like I don't think that's true.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. I like that. There is the
Statement
worthy at
worthy price
53.
tag is just
The flippening. It's the flippening has already happened where the ADP of all three of them was in a row, and now Worthy has jumped Marquise Brown, and Rashi Rice continues to fall. All right, we're back up here, Leone. According to ADP, Shroud at the top there. Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts sets up some Atlanta stuff. Christian Kirk is your guys' highest ranked player. What do you like?
I'd be honestly fine with Kirk, Rashad White, or Pitts. I feel like I'd probably take one of those three options, or not Pitts. I wouldn't take Pitts ahead of Andrews, even with the
Okay, let's take Kirk
correlation.
then. Let's take Kirk here then.
Right now, if you use the ETR ranks, you're just gonna get like Trevor Lawrence stacks on repeat. But
that's funny because if you use Hayden's ranks, I think you'll get Trevor Lawrence stacks on repeat as well.
I think he ran very bad last year, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk basically paid off this price tag last year. So I'm expecting the offense to do better and Kirk to continue to see a lot of targets. And yeah, I don't really understand. I think people maybe are just a little fatigued on Jacksonville not quite reaching their potential the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that I'll ask you about there that I've seen popping in some other people's stuff is the Titans as a potential. Ran bad last year. Now there's a big overturn and overhaul in coaching and talent, and now they're going to be more pass centric. Is that a team that we can get on board with?
Yeah, I think, I was arguing with Anthony Amico today. He's on Team Calvin Ridley. I'm more on DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
But
shocking development that Leone's on the old guy.
Shock. In general, though, I think we both agree that they could be a little bit more fun than they were last year. They're going to throw a little bit more, and it's a pretty cheap stack to be able to make. You can get Levis late. We like a Conquo late. So I'm into taking, either Hopkins or Ridley at ADP, and then you can figure out the backdoor double stack.
Yeah, no, I like that for sure. I was really hoping just because I saw all those tight ends go.
Bully tight ends.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think Gretsch has influenced the meta a little bit here because he was saying on our show that his favorite build was 4 wide receivers through the first 4 rounds and then double tapping the 2 elite tight ends.
So when I get in the position we're in now, though, I'm like pretty much all 3 late tight ends. Dan Falkenheim did a tweet the other day, but basically the middle tier tight ends for whatever reason are going a lot earlier than before, and I don't get it.
No, I agree with you there. We got some decisions here. We could build out some Jacksonville stuff with Brian Thomas here. If Kittle still is elite tight end pocket, or we could go with a second running back.
I'm honestly, I could go. I'd maybe lean Thomas because I'm always fearful these rookies are going to skyrocket and we're not going to get them later. There's also we could go Kittle too. This is okay. Well, we're going Brian Thomas.
We're going Brian Thomas. There we go.
That was a tough one. I could have you could have made justification. Tampa Bay with Chris Godwin and Kamara could have added to like our NFC South stuff. I like Kenneth Walker at this price tag. I still think the offense is going to be solid and he has such big play potential, but I know like Herzig's pretty worried about Charbs carving out a bigger role this year.
Yeah, he's just such a big play upside guy too. Like you see the spike weeks from Ken Walker throughout the regular season, and it's just like, man, how do they just not use this guy way more? But Yeah, interesting stuff there. Other everyone adding in here, yeah, get ready to learn T-Law. Yeah, that's what we're setting up for this team. Absolutely. But the news here that Tyler Boyd was added to the Titans as well there. I was looking at your guys' rankings earlier. You guys were some of the highest in the industry on Treylon Burks. I imagine that's going to come down a little bit now, or do we think they're going to move on from him, and that's why he's ranked so high?
So the reason he was ranked high was kind of like a combo of like maybe he gets traded, or if he doesn't, he still could maybe, play slot role or something for Tennessee and still work out. Now that they've signed Boyd and haven't traded him yet, I think you have to bake in that risk and he'll drop in our ranks, even though I do think there's, I don't know, maybe like a 50-50 chance he gets traded. I would love the Bills to trade for him. I think he'd fit in. Like that'd be like they're even drafting Coleman. They're still like pretty gross at receiver depth wise. So he'd be a pretty good low risk, not low risk, but like low investment type bet. I'm sure it's not going to take a very high draft pick to get Burks over to a different team.
Yeah, eerily similar to replaying the playbook on Corey Davis there, where they spend high draft capital on a receiver that people like. Obviously, not as high on Treylon as the Corey Davis one was, but they trade him before his 5th-year option kind of deal.
All right, I think I got one more pick in me before
All right.
I leave you with the challenging task of making this team come together.
Yeah. Yeah. The draft capital was not the same. Just the predicament in deciding to trade before 5th-year option stuff.
Yeah, I, mean, I was thinking Burks would be like a 7th rounder, but I don't even. Okay. Yeah.
All right, we are coming up on the Burrow stack with T. Higgins. Feels kind of nice.
I think I'd probably do that here, knowing where the ADP gap is between Hopkins and Burrow. We already have the stack set up, and we're pretty good at wide receiver anyways. I think it makes sense to go with the stack, and then hopefully we get T-Law later, but we have some outs with like Derek Carr and stuff later on in the Olave thing if it doesn't work out.
And for whatever reason, Leone, I keep finding my way to manufacturing my own outs by adding Tyler Lockett to this and then finding a way to get Geno on this team.
So, I love it.
I mean, that's just where I'm at there. But yeah, I do like this idea that we've set ourselves up nicely for a Burrow T-Law. Leone, before you dip here, I got to ask you like just one end all pressing question here. Who is a late guy that you are on right now in BBM that you think has the potential to skyrocket later, or it's just a guy that you look like right now, we need this guy on our roster, we want to be ahead of the field on?
I feel like I'm going to spoil it for our team, but like with these Burrow stacks, Jermaine Burton is a rookie that I think could come up a lot if it seems like for sure he's got that slot role once the offseason develops. If we know he has the slot role, he's going to move up. His ADP is 163 right now. I think it could go as high as like the 120s or so, depending on exactly how that stuff plays out.
Love it. No, that's a really good one. I mean, just so much variance in his potential outcome, just in terms of not. Oh, here you got one more pick in here, Leone, before you dip.
Ooh, this is a tough pick. I might go Moss here with our Cincy stack and get a second running back. I know I respect it. It's early, but I think I'd probably do that.
I like it. Both you
no, it's not that early.
No, it's not. No, this is a good spot for him. Both you and Hayden are ahead of the field right now on Zach Moss, and I was ahead of the field on Zach Moss in the big board stuff, forcing Pete and Nez's hands into drafting Zach Moss over and over again. So this feels like a good and appropriate pick for us. All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. See you, man.
Always, man. See you, Mike. All right. Let's keep rolling here. Start interacting with the chat a little bit more. See if we can land this plane without Leone. All right. Guys, do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe, that notification stuff. We got plenty more BBM stuff coming this week. Tomorrow, Davis Maddox is going to join us. So we're going to have our regular off and on the clock with Pete. And then Davis is going to join us for that. That's going to start at 1:30 Eastern. And then Thursday's show, Justin Herzig and Pat Crane at the same time, 2 former BBM champions duking it out We're gonna do ETR ranks versus leg up ranks. Talk through some of the disparity in theirs and what each of them are seeing individually, and then probably nothing Friday, and then we will be back Monday with Nez's big return. So going to be some fun stuff coming your guys' way real soon here. Noah hitting on the fact that, echoing what Leone's saying, that those 3 late tight ends feel good because that middle tier of tight end is pushed up so high. Respect it a lot there. Let's see what's going on in terms of ADP here. Brock Bowers still pushed up pretty high. Yeah, this is gonna be interesting to see if I can land this plane without him. Let's see. Yeah, Meatwad, this is something we've been talking about a lot here. That the Grub offense thesis feels very fun. New coaching staff in Seattle for the first time in forever. Feels like something. Yeah. Erzig's hanging out already. We'll be hanging out with him on Thursday, saying this is the most ETR team thus far. I mean, maybe this is why I love ETR, because here we go. Christian Kirk, no matter what, print the t-shirts. See where we end up. This feels like Trevor Lawrence and shut it down, but we'll compare ADP to rank and see what's up. We might be able to push it around the corner. Yeah. We can push it around the corner. Let's make sure that the Evan Ingram drafter isn't on our right-hand side. I believe he's on our left. Okay. We're cool there. Tyler Lockett gives us the Geno out. Not that I think we need it here. Dallas Goedert as our first tight end feels fine as well. Let's play the ETR hits and go with Joshua Palmer. We're Joshua Palmer guys around here. Just land it now. Yo, should I just push it? Should I just push the plane, Lou Dog? Should I go with it? Yeah, GA, man. Bruins in 4. I don't know, man. They looked pretty good last night. Putting up 5 on the Panthers. Crazy one last night. Really fun NBA slate last night. Damn, I had a really good sweat at the end. I had 4 guys still live, 3 Minnesota guys, 2 of them being contrarian, and then also had Joker, and they just couldn't keep it within, I don't know, 20 or 25 to keep Joker on the floor for the last 4 minutes. Ended up coming like, I think it was like 28th or something for, I don't know, $400 or something, but felt like we had a legit sweat at taking down the NBA one last night. Put in some good volume there for the first time in a minute. Really liked the slate. Another fun one tonight. I hope Jared Allen plays. Pitch saying Wolves in 4, man. I mean, those defensive rotations last night were insane without Gobert. I mean, even without Gobert, they were protecting the rim. They're so much bigger. They're so much longer. Like, Jamal just looks so shook trying to get shots off. Like, he's even when Mike Conley switches to him, he doesn't attack him. Like, I mean, Jamal's low key hurt right now. But anyways, let's talk some football. All right, Trevor Lawrence way ahead of rank, sort of in line with ADP right now. I say we just locked up that beautiful stack that we have set up here. I think we put a little star beside Jermaine Burton as a guy who's going to find his way onto this team. Interested to see that they're even ahead of market on Gabe Davis for the ETR stuff. So that's pretty interesting. Talk through some of that with Herzig on Thursday there. Good stuff. I wonder, what do you guys think? I did see a question in the chat earlier about asking Leone about the handcuffing thing. Do you think it's insane on a Cincinnati build out like this, where we only have one Cincinnati wide receiver, to double tap the Bengals running backs here and do like Chase Brown and Zach Moss? They could both see touches. They play slightly different roles. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts on that would be, because does it play better? Does it play better to do like Bijan plus Algier and not be involved in your quarterback stack when you do that? Or does it play better to be involved being stacked with your quarterback because Chase Brown could be the pass catcher? We saw him rip some long runs last year, or long dump offs to the house last year in the last 2 weeks of the season. I mean, does that play better? Very interesting. Very interesting. Not smart enough to answer that question for you guys. Brunson for MVP, man, he looks every bit of it right now. What is that? 5 straight games with 40? 4 straight games with 40? Man. FIBA. They got Jokic, but we got Jaden McDaniels. Good UW boy, Jaden McDaniels, doing work right now. I love it. Andrew saying he thinks it's worth trying, doing the double tap on the running backs there. Double tap Cincy running backs a lot, Ben's saying. Do you do it with the quarterback though, Ben? That's the big question. I think it's a fine play to do on its lonesome though. Yeah. SDSU boy. Wow, that's deep cut, Crutches. You're smarter than me, man. All right. What else we got around here? Actually, Crutches, while you're hanging out in the chat, tell me, is Jared Allen playing basketball tonight? The guy has not been going through shoot around. He has been in some immense pain recently. Weird slate tonight, man, because it feels like we haven't seen OKC play basketball in a long time. It just feels like, what? They've been off for a week plus now. How's that going to fare? Tim Hardaway Jr. is coming back tonight for Dallas in that game. All right, Gus Bus, man, Gus Bus continues to climb. I think people are getting really wise to the J.K. Dobbins contract situation. That being said, man, I would not rule out J.K. Dobbins. Like, we're being so quick to rule out J.K. Dobbins. I don't think the situation is anywhere close to what people are attributing the A.J. Dillon one, even if the contracts are like somewhat similar and incentive laden with not that much guaranteed money. I mean, like, J.K. Dobbins hasn't looked himself in a while, but people forget that he was pretty nice and he's pretty young still. Star Tours, we'll take a look in 1 second there. Yeah, it's a weird situation, Crutches, where it's like it's a pain tolerance thing, like unless they're hiding something. Yeah. All right, we got ourselves a 2-2-6 and nothing at the tight end yet. This is going to be 3 late tight ends for sure. I think we're done at quarterback on this roster. Don't like any of that. I actually like Quorum. Let's do Quorum here. That feels good. Hayden kind of sold me on Blake Quorum the other day. Like, just in terms of like, is there anyone with better contingent upside tethered to a system where they like to use one running back so effing much? And everyone called him like the most pro ready running back in the class. Like, from a system standpoint, I like this. Yeah, this is interesting. Gobbler bringing up the fact that Vidal might be the odd man out. I don't know. They didn't spend much draft capital at the running back position. I know we want to get excited about him because of the depth chart. Who was it was it Hayden the other day that said that they really liked the tape? I think it was Hayden. It was Hayden or Gretsch that said it the other day that they really liked the tape there, but yeah. Davis contributed that JP Dobbins made us look smart for 3/4 of a game last year. That's funny. Yeah, guarantee is only 50K. That's shocking, dude. That's shockingly low money, even for a running back, right? I loved Hayden's quote from the other day that he said the 50K was less than winning the Chihuahua or whatever, less than winning a puppy contest on the site. J.K. Dobbins making less money. It'd be pretty fun to go back in time and compare each BBM winner at their given window, how much money they made that year, juxtaposed to a player who made less than them that year. So if we go back to, Karane's obviously being the biggest one, but if we went back and did Herzig, Liam, Karane, just compare each time, it'd be pretty funny. See what player on vet minimum wasn't making as much. Man, Jerome Ford's really rising here. I was talking the other day that I was doing the select in the last round, Deontay Foreman, and I was thinking, yeah, get some early down work, use Jerome Ford as the pass catcher. People are really buying into the notion that Jerome Ford might be just lead dog for like, let's paint a scenario where like the news is bearish on Nick Chubb. They restructured his deal to stay on the team. He starts the year on the pup list. Jerome Ford could just take that backfield and run, right? Maybe they use Deonta Foreman around the goal line a little bit, but yeah. And then Hayden alluded to, if Kareem Hunt ends up coming back and that's the competition, well, he was one of the worst backs that they watched all of last year. In terms of rank, Rico Dowell, I do not have a ton of Rico. We're at 3 running backs here. Could be a consideration for us. Dotson doesn't really offer any correlation. Not going to do another quarterback on this team. Yeah, let's do Rico. Let's do Rico. Why not? Why not Rico winning the job instead of Zeke? Showed some burst last year. We got talked off the ledge on Miles Sanders being a potential cut candidate and finding his way there. I guess it's a little scary. What did you guys think about the 5th-year option not being picked up by the Steelers, and then immediate rumors that Cowboys might be in play for Najee? That it's a little scary. I mean, that's a little scary for Zeke's value, but if you're a team, why would you not pick up Najee's 5th-year option? Like, you're just kind of telling the league that you're going to give him away. I don't know. Was there a deadline that they had to decide on the 5th-year option? I didn't think the deadline was until June 1, but it might have been May 1. I don't know. I'm not as well versed in my understanding of the NFL calendar in that regard. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like shocking that, like, even if he's not a part of your like quote unquote future plans, let's see what that. I'm gonna look it up and see what that 5th-year option. I mean, he is a former first-round pick, so that 5th-year option might be like considerably more money than they're willing to spend at running back in general. Does that make you guys bullish on Jaylen Warren though? I mean, everybody loved Jaylen Warren as is. Does that make you more bullish on Jaylen? Kind of interesting. Maybe wait for our guy Nez before we get some Steelers chat going on here. Okay, let's check this out. Decline the 5th-year option, it would jump to 6.7. So they're giving him 2.4 as the base this year. The signing bonus is the same every single year because he's a first rounder. So it would basically vault against the cap an extra $2.5 million. I don't know, 27-year-old first round running back. Yeah. I don't know. If you're looking to trade him, though, doesn't publicly declining the option look bad? Okay, so GA's got a little Jason because he sucked. I mean, I can't disagree. I was not a big fan last year. I keep going back to the well because Nez makes me, not because I want to. Okay, let's see here. 5th-year option is fully guaranteed, so seems to not like to do that with injured players' position. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That does check out. It is a fully guaranteed number. That is a very astute point. Thank you, GA. So maybe that doesn't mean they're out on him in general. We got to start thinking about the tight end here. Juwan Johnson. All right. Fant feels okay. Okay. Not quite yet. We can double down on our Atlanta bet that we've already made and divisional correlation with Darnell Mooney. I guess there is some in Adam Thielen as well, but we've already made the Atlanta bet. Let's take Mooney there. It's around ADP. It feels fine. This feels like 2583. Does that math add up? That feels right? Leone's manifesto always saying that, the less draft capital on running backs spent has performed well. 5 to 6 running backs has performed well. 6 to 9 wide receivers has performed well. Damn it. There goes Burton. Star Tours was all over it. I should have been paying more attention to the ADP coming up there. Fuck, that's on me. I'm sorry, Leone. I'm crushing our EV. 163. Damn, that should have been the pick right there. I am such a fish. Things continue to fall off the rails when my guests leave every time. I get exposed, guys. I get exposed in these lobbies. Oh man. Okay. This we're gonna right the ship. Don't worry. No, it's not your bad. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. Leone shouted him. He liked the pick. Hayden shouted him in our pre-draft show as a potential guy, but damn, you hate to see it. Here's a good shout. Yeah, the 50-year option is why Carolina traded back up into the first round for Xavier Legette. Yeah, good shout. I mean, little shit like that people forget about when they're just like watching the draft and they're like, "Whoa, they jumped up to take Legette instead of insert other name." Well, it's like, yeah, well they traded up not necessarily because they love. Well, they obviously loved him more than the other player, but they traded up for that 50-year option. That's a lot of team control, man. If you just think about a dude coming into the league, like you're 22, 24 years old, and like this team just like controls your rights. All right. Baltimore division correlation, or we've already made the Saints bet with Olave division correlation as well. Let's do it. ETR likes Juwan Johnson, slightly ahead of Isaiah Likely. I was thinking Isaiah Likely could be a little Baltimore run back off of the Cincinnati stuff there, but I'm trusting my guys at ETR. Let's go. Juwan Johnson as tight end one in this team. I mean, we talked about it the other day. They haven't brought in many pass catchers, man. A.T. Perry still their wide receiver too. Yeah. Tyler says Juwan's the play. Appreciate it. Here we go. Now we're right in the ship. We are right in the ship. The Darnell Mooney was when we look back on this draft and we name this team, Darnell Mooney, no, with like 9 O's. That's the name of this team for sure. Jermaine Burton. Man, these rookie running backs, look at that. You talk about Pete's video on like how the landscape and knowing the drafters that you're currently drafting with and knowing the type of lobbies that we are in because this is a streamed draft, because this is early in BBM window. Look at the archetype of players that are flying off the board in the 14th round here. Ray Davis, Vidal, Bucky Irving, like just like instant, like people are clamoring, foaming at the mouth to get the next big breakout rookie running back in their zero RB builds. It's very interesting, man. It brings me full circle to some of Hayden's points yesterday about like maybe this is the window to be spending up a little more at running back, or maybe this is the window that we do what Biden for was alluding to in terms of like renaming what hero RB is, because what we know as the traditional dead zone doesn't necessarily exist in the same capacity right now. Because look, we had spatterings of green in those first couple of rounds, but we had 1 green in the 3rd round. We only had 4 in the second, or in the 4th round. We only had 2 in the 5th, or 3 in the 5th round. I mean, it's just a completely different landscape than we've grown accustomed to when we learned our original naming of these builds and naming of these archetypes, right? All right, 4 more picks. 2 are going to be tight end. Yeah, 2 are going to be tight end. 1's going to be running back for sure. Maybe we could do 2 running back if we feel good about the wide receiver room. Wow, there is not a lot of green at the top of the board right now. Holy smokes. What do we think about Tyler Boyd, guys? Do we feel good about Tyler Boyd? Is that jumping the shark? Are we such fish that like, he just signs, we'll take Tyler Boyd now? Isaiah Likely, contingent upside. We do the contingent upside and we do the run back off the Cincinnati stuff. Little divisional core. Doesn't feel terrible. There's no tight end in football that has better contingent upside than Isaiah Likely, is there? And he showed it. He showed it in the tail end of last year. Jay, who will be cheering no for? Which guy was no? The Shaheed Eraser. That's what Juwan Johnson's now. Theo Johnson, people jumping on my good Canadian kid from Penn State. I like it. I respect it. Actually, while we're talking about ETR, Levitan brought something up about like the Penn State guys testing so well all the time. Interesting. Interesting stuff. Wonder why that is. Wonder why there's an emphasis on testing or emphasis on metrics like that. Is it something that they develop? Is it something they know that will help the kids in the future there? Just found it interesting. I'm thinking about the Cincinnati backstack here. Are we done with the dude that we were drafting in the big board? Now that they drafted Jermaine Burton, are we done with Andre Izzo, whatever his name was? Here we go. Rookie Cincinnati tight end in the 18th. I mean, they got a good UW boy at tight end that we could take back there in Drew Sample. Has Mike Gesicki gone yet? They got Tanner Hudson, who's like an old preseason darling. Who else is on that Bengals roster? Let's see if I can rattle off some names, huh? Eric All. Eric All was the one that they drafted this year, was he not? All right, we're back up here. I think it's running back. Interesting. They got Jared McCann up here like that. We could do the Tank Bigsby and like triple down on our Jag stuff. Wow, Tyrone Tracy's already gone too. Holy smokes. Tank Bigsby. Let's do it. Name value. Name value on this team. Not an ETR approved pick. That was all on my. That's where this team went off the rails. If Leone ever asks, he goes, "What did you do wrong?" We say Tank Bigsby at 186. We're off the rails now. I don't know. We're making that correlated bet now. Why not? Why not Tank Bigsby? The pendulum is fully swung back the other way, where we thought he was a bad pick last year and we think he's okay this year. Who else do they have in that backfield? It's Travis Etienne, it is Tank Bigsby, and it's D'Ernest Johnson. We've been down this D'Ernest Johnson. We've been down that D'Ernest Johnson role a million times. We don't need to go back down there. We're taking Tank Bigsby. Get some goal line work there. What do we think? Oh, all is a Iowa tight end. That changes everything. Iowa tight end, always the play. Interesting. All right. Oh, here you go. Right in the chat. Right away. Who's already got us covered? D'Ernest Johnson over Tank. Damn it. Oh, okay. Hold on. So all isn't. Okay, hold on, guys. Now you got me confused. All isn't the Iowa tight end. All was the Michigan tight end, and they drafted the other guy, Tanner, whatever the hell his name was. He was the Iowa guy? No. Okay, Eric All was the Iowa guy. Okay, all right. We're good. We're back on the same wavelength here. Someone said Michigan and threw it off. All right. Injured Michigan tight end. So maybe it was a transfer. There we go. Okay, you guys are one step ahead of me. All right, transfer. All equals Iowa tight end. Thank you guys. Okay, Fant. Yeah, Fant's in Iowa. There we go. Let's get Fant on this roster. Oh, never mind. He went right before because Star Tours is taking all our guys. Star Tours is making all the picks ETR wants me to make. And I'm just going rogue out here without Leone's guidance. All right, we got to land this plane with at least one more tight end. People are telling me Theo Johnson. We don't care that it doesn't stack. So we do all as the stack. What's his profile like? I mean, like guys at Iowa, they don't catch passes, right? And then they come to the league and then they teach them to catch passes because that's just how Iowa rolls. Wow, look at all the piss boy stuff available late here. The Traylon Burks one is going to be amended as Leone suggested. Tyler Boyd went. Where did Tyler Boyd go? We'll find it after. We're on the clock. We can't risk screwing this last pick up here. Tight end. All for the stack. Gesicki for the stack. We just do Gesicki, right? It just feels like so much better. Maybe when we get some ownership data in the future, and it's late August, and we got one preseason game under our belt, and all was running 65% of routes, and he had one touchdown, and we're feeling all warm and fuzzy. Then we mix him in for the leverage. But the fact that it's May 7th right now, let's just take the known commodity of Mike Gesicki and add the suck man to this roster. A 2-5-7-3. Bijan, Zach Moss, Blake Corum, Rico Dowell, Tank Bigsby, Olave, Devonta, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, Joshua Palmer, Darnell Mooney. That Darnell Mooney pick is living rent free in my head right now. Is this 2-6-7-3 or is this 2-5-7-3? Give me some votes in the chat here. Do I take a running back or do I take a running back or do I take a wide receiver here to close this off, to land this plane? What would Leone do? Interesting. They got Samaje Perine up here pretty high. Gretsch was shouting his love for Javonte Williams a decent amount there. Just find that interesting. He's definitely a cut candidate, or he could have the pass catching and third down rule. Two very polarizing outcomes for Samaje, and in terms of his fantasy value, both are probably good. Like both are probably fine. Jamal Williams, a little bit of a resurgence bounce back there. We could double down on our New Orleans stuff. Jamal Williams, leader in the clubhouse right now. Good UW boy. Jalen McMillan. I don't know. What do you guys think here? Running back. The people are telling me running back. I just got Jamal in all caps in the chat. Can Jamal score more than one touchdown this season? Let's do it. Our first Jamal Williams share. Don't tell Leone. Actually, no. Leone will love that pick. He's old. Jamal's old. Leone's in, maybe. Ooh, there's your first Evan Hall this season. I hadn't seen that one yet. He was a little bit of a darling last year when people were deciding whether they should take Zach Moss or Evan Hall after JT got injured. Yeah, RB, but there's no good one. RB, Jamal, and Flyfish telling me what's up. Puke City on the Jamal pick. Oh man. I love it. Yeah, we got one solid running back on this team. Guys, don't worry, they don't matter. As long as we don't get too many zeros, right? Wow, Devin Davis suggesting he's got 24% Evan Hall in the pre-NFL draft contest. Respect. Love it. Respect. Our man with the insider motocross knowledge. We went 3 for 4 on that first pick'em that he posted in the Discord there. It was man, we should have had a better fate. All right, we'll go ahead and name this one. Give Leone his EV on this situation. Leone plus Jon. Actually, I guess I know it's plus Jon, right? But he's got to know that it's a bros stream. That's what we got to do. And then we the Mooney. No, there's too many. Okay, we'll fix this up here. Too many there. Mooney. No, that's how many O's they'll let us. We'll just do one exclamation point. All right. There it is. Tell me. Drop a plane in the chat if I landed it. 2-6-7-3. My first of that build type. I don't know if that's a Leone approved build, though he did say he'd been on the 3 tight end train recently. We ended up with the Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence stacks. All right. Burrow, Lawrence, Bijan, Moss, Corum, Rico Dowell, Tank Bigsby, Jamal Williams. Fuck those last two picks. Oh my. Olave, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr., Joshua Palmer, Darnell Mooney, Jawan Johnson, Isaiah Likely, Mike Gesicki. Hat tip to Karane's winning team that had Mike Gesicki on it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Plane landed? Plane landed? Respect it. Absolutely respect it. Oh man. All right, guys. We still got 130 of us hanging out here. Do us a favor. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, that notification. As I alluded to at the top there, tons more BBM adjacent content coming your way. We'll get back to servicing the multi-sport draft leads behind the paywall tomorrow, I believe. And then next week as well, as soon as Nez returns there. But the majority of guests that I could get on here, it is prime BBM, initial hype season, but then also B, the majority of guests that I could get on were certified football bros. So, Nez has that going for him, that he is a multi-sport draft lead when it comes to losing his position on the Badge Bros here. Tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, Davis Maddock plus our guy Pete Overzed for Off and On the Clock, and then 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday for the definitive BBM 1 champ and BBM 3 champ, Pat Carane and Justin Herzig. We will talk through the ETR ranks versus the legendary upside ranks and some of the situations that are going on behind those. Yeah. Love it, man. Okay. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Everybody's favorite time of the show. The end. Peace. Good luck in the baseball and basketball streets tonight.